questions that are going to go up and we're going to record their answers.
Recording in progress.
So we're going to help you get connected to this. Where are those documents at, Chief? Okay, you want
I had them at the front door.
Okay.
She was
Did
getting them
everybody
ready.
get one of those small documents? Okay.
That one would. Yes, sir.
You guys want to? Yeah.
It's a Gearhart Park, 1918.
Yeah, I had it up. I think I closed it. Thought you were gonna have it on as.
Anybody smell? Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you need to sign in as a guest?
Yes, just.
Okay, just skip it.
You can put your name or guess, it doesn't matter. So- Okay, so what do you do?
Oh, that's on chat.
Everyone that's attending on Zoom, what's happening is they are getting the crowd connected to Wi-Fi, so you're not missing anything.
No, you can sign it again. Yeah.
I don't know that online.
How many are on? And we'll do that again. About 17 so far.
That's right, I'm sorry. This is just copy of your screen, Chad, is what that is. Like this.
Are you controlling mine?
Oh.
Did you get it?
For those of you just joining us on Zoom, I'm helping everyone inside the fire station get connected to Wi-Fi, so you haven't missed anything. They're just working through that first.
Or just ask random. Then I want to go there. Yeah, you got it. Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm not the best at helping with that, but. Everyone else did.
Are you ready?
You're good.
Not quite yet.
If I
Couple
open it, it's
seconds.
easier to see on there. 24 in front, right in front. It's just a different view. That just joins Zoom. It's easier just to leave. And then.
Did you guys get the paper? Do you have your phone with you? Do you want to vote?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, I just see.
Okay, we've just got a couple of joiners, and then welcome to the second town hall, exploring the need for a possible new public safety building. Thank you for coming out. I know it's a little cool, little stormy out there. To start off with, we're going to have, you're going to tag team with Dana. a little presentation by Counselor Gould. And after that, we'll have anything that the council wants to say before we move into trying out our voting. And you should be able to see our responses immediately on the screen. Your responses. All of our responses. Okay. Dana, are you ready?
I'm on, and actually Chad's going to do the majority of the presentation and I'm gonna hop in as need be.
Okay, great.
Just trying to share my screen here, having some troubles there. Here we go.
What happens if we can't?
If you can, what?
Here, get it, Chad. We'll help them over.
No, I have.
So curious.
Okay, we're gonna have another opportunity to try to get online and to do some of this technology work here. It's kind of an interesting polling situation where we'll be able to collect some information, then over time, we can begin reporting on some of that. It's also instant feedback. So as soon as you see your responses, you're gonna see them up on the screen along with everybody else. And this polling situation will also include the people that are online.
Yes.
So for those of you that are online, you can get this QR code by going to the cityofgearhart.com. You can go to the blog and take a look at the latest blog posting that just went out again. And then we'll have it up on the screen here in just another minute. But in the meantime, we've been collecting some information and trying to put some of this situation down onto. It's like somebody's getting a call. It sounds like North County. Okay, so we'll turn that all the way down for Cameron. Thank you. So this is modernizing Gearhart's emergency services. It is definitely a community challenge, and we've been working on this for quite some time. The Gearhart Emergency Services overview. Our emergency services do include water, but primarily fire and police. And we do a lot of work with that around in here. The Gearhart Police and Volunteer Fire Department serve approximately 1,513 homes and structures, dwelling units, if you will. Within that, we have had quite a few calls over the last year. In the fire service, we've had over 700. What was the total?
For last year, 744.
744 calls, which again, just to kind of give you some idea of what that was, back in 2000 or 1997, our call volume was just under 200 calls. So we've grown quite a bit and we've been pretty busy. Located near the Pacific Coast and Highway 101, experiencing increased traffic in summer. I think we all see the ebbs and flows of Gearhart and how things have been getting busier and busier, especially those of you that have been trying to get out onto the highway. The Volunteer Fire Department supports Gearhart Rural Fire Protection District, contributing to 1/3 of its budget. Wanted to get into that just a little bit. The Gearhart Rural Fire Protection District is another taxing district outside the city of Gearhart. They tax everything from outside the city limits of Gearhart, starting at about East Pine Lane, all the way to the Golf and Country Club. And within that, those people pay taxes for fire service to the Gearhart Rural Fire Protection District. And the Gearhart Rural Fire Protection District in turn turns around and pays for about a third of the fire department's budget. Police department also quite busy, getting busier these years. I don't have any numbers really to show you what kind of calls they are, but maybe Chief off the top of your head.
Last year we had 400, well, we had up to 800 and some odd, lower 800 actionable items. So the case files were 450 around that case files. And then we had other things we dealt with, which we call log entries. So we were quite busy.
And how many officers?
2. We have the 3rd coming.
Yes. Yeah, the training's going well.
Yeah,
He's doing a
absolutely.
fantastic job. So Jeremiah will be done with his training in about,
He graduates the academy March 29th.
okay.
Yay.
And for the Gearhart Volunteer Fire Department, you have a paid and volunteer, kind of a combination department. What are your ratios on that?
So for last year, when we ran 744 calls, we had 2 full-time staff for half the year. The other half we were recruiting and advertising for position we have now. So we have staffing for 2 full-time and we have 28 volunteer firefighters.
28 volunteer fire department fighters, and that is pretty high actually for this community. I think that's one of the highest in the county, if not the highest amount of volunteers in the county. So it seems like after COVID, we have been getting more and more recruits to the point to where now Andy and Josh, Chief Andy and Chief Josh, are working on a recruit academy to begin training those folks, and the newer ones especially. And then also, I think that the city of Warrenton is going to participate with our recruit academy. The city of Astoria is going to, and Cannon Beach. So we're gonna do some regional training. We're gonna have some people here. We're gonna move around the county while we're doing that a little bit.
No, we're gonna do it all out of our.
Substation.
The substation training grounds. And it's been interesting. I think that right now Warrenton's got like 10 new volunteers, which is incredible. We go from having not enough to starting to get a lot. So this recruit academy is going to be something that they're working very hard on. Challenges of aging structure, and you see a couple of pictures there. The city of Gearhart has not done a lot to update its infrastructure in regards to buildings in a lot of years. The police and fire departments operate from buildings that are over 50 years old. Kind of, yeah, I'm going to say unsuitable for modern operations. We've been making these buildings work really well for the time being. If you've been over in City Hall, you notice, I think all but one of the offices has 2, if not 3 people inside their office. We're pretty scrunched in there. That building was built back in 1972. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Actually, when it was first built in 1972, it had a overhang and a garage on the back. That was converted into the police department and the fire department a few years after 1972. The facilities lack modern safety, security features, hindering our department's efficiency and service quality. You see what we're dealing with the small fire department. We are, when we built fire trucks, we built them custom so that they will fit into this building. But I think we've gotten our value out of this building pretty well, especially seeing as how considered it was built by volunteers back in 1958. The names of the volunteers that are on the front of this building. And there's some great old pictures of this building. When it was first constructed, there was 2 bays over on this side, and that was it. And it had a nice big Gearhart fire sign on it, and it looked like an old bowling alley sign. A couple of years later, if not about 8 or so, yeah, they built the additional 2. They immediately ran out of space, and during the call volume, they definitely needed more. So the volunteers again built on that second half. Previous attempts to rebuild through bond measures in 2006 and 2022 failed.
Chad, can I interrupt for just a minute? My screen is not progressing with your PowerPoint. Is your PowerPoint moving forward?
It says challenges of aging infrastructure still.
There we go. Okay, my apologies.
Thanks for checking. The previous attempts to rebuild through bond measures in 2006 and 2022, we're all familiar with 2022. That was a 14.5 million bond that they were looking at. It was north of the community, just outside up on higher ground. And that was the direction that the council and we were heading then. In 2006, it was a different scenario. In 2006, they actually talked about replacing the station and rebuilding it right here in this location, and it failed. In 2006, the reason was there was multiple reasons I think that it failed. Some of them were that it was just too big, too much for the community of Gearhart. Do we need this? It was also put together with the city hall involved. They were talking about tearing down the city hall in 2006 and rebuilding it into kind of a community structure with a city hall, fire station, police station, all in one. Does anybody remember what the cost of that structure was? 3.6 million. 3.6 million. But at the time, that was a big amount as well, you know, in 2006, and it was voted down. Now, to do the same sort of thing is gonna cost us a little bit more with the cost of everything that's coming up and the cost of money and all that. But that was some of the history.
Can I say something, Chad?
Sure.
Okay. In the 2006, just for you people that may not know, we just finished passing an $11 million water bond. The fire department went after another $3 million to build a municipal building here in downtown, like the one they had in Warrenton, or have in Warrenton.
Yeah, in 2006 it was 7 million. It was still expensive, and then after that they had to go for more after the appeals process, and all sorts of things changed with water that we had to accommodate. So in January 2024, Town Hall showed community interest in the capital improvements project. Citizens emphasized the desire for inclusion in decision-making processes. So here we are, as per the mayor. Questions and suggestions from the community highlighted the need for a thorough assessment of options. And that's what our intentions are, is to go through and thoroughly look at all of the options. Talk about some of these things that are coming out that we need to investigate. I know merging's one of the situations, locations another situation, size, needs assessment and all that we're gonna have to get into. We're not there yet. We're taking this slow. Well, slow is maybe not the right word. We're doing this appropriately to bring everybody along and to make sure that you have an opportunity to speak up. To talk about some of the basic police department needs that we have, a secure, modern facility to comply with EPA, OSHA, ADA, and the United States Department of Justice standards. There's a lot of standards in that. They do require us to be doing a lot of different things, and we're just not able to meet a lot of those standards with our current situation. There's going to be a point where before we sign up for the poll, there's going to be an opportunity for us to get up and go over there and take a look at those offices. Also to wander around this building a little bit and ask questions. We'll probably spend 10 or 15 minutes doing that. It won't be very long. It'll give you an opportunity to see what we are working with. Challenges include lack of climate control, inadequate technology infrastructure, non-compliance with ADA standards, essential for staff efficiency, public safety, and reducing liability. Reducing liability, of course, is something that we're always very keen on. We try to stay out of trouble.
Can I interject here, Chad, before we move on?
Please.
Go back to that last slide. So, you know, everybody knows that we have only 3 officers. We just discussed that. 3 officers is not even a full-time staff. Perhaps someday in the future, we will need to go to more officers. And I think that is going to be coming up sooner rather than later as the cities around us grow and as national trends continue to encroach on our area. One of the ways that we can maximize the 3 officers that we have is by improving the efficiency of the department. And one of the ways that we can address that is by making things easier for them to do, keeping them in the city whenever possible. And that was one of the things that we considered when we did this analysis of what they're doing and how they're doing, and are they doing what they're doing in the best way, with the goal being keep them in the city and make them spend as much time while they're on duty actually working for the community rather than wasting time trying to overcome operational issues. And I'm out. Back to you, Chad.
Thank you. And again, this is just preliminary. When we get into the needs assessment, it's going to be a much deeper dive. Some of the characteristics of a modern police facility are listed here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but being accessible and hospitable to the public. Security. That's a huge issue these days. You know, everybody's dealing with it. And if you walked around our buildings, you've probably seen the level of security that we have. Space for interviews, space to bring people in that are otherwise incarcerated or picked up, arrested, brought in. We're basically bringing them into City Hall and trying to find a space to do that work. Lunch and coffee breaks, we don't have that kind of situation now. It'd be nice to have. Security for our evidence, security for the weapons, security for the things that we have that enables our police officers to do their jobs. Any others that you'd like to add that are top of the mind? Sorry.
You're good. A lot of it's records and evidence. The proper way to keep the chain of custody of evidence is paramount. We don't have it. There's no space to work with what we need. It's a very tight space. So pretty well spelled out here.
And you're going to see that in just a little bit.
Yeah, to jump in, I would say that calling those spaces office spaces is really being very kind. It's really a tiny little office that is not designed for 3 people to work out of, certainly not ergonomically, and then essentially a hallway that's working as a multi-purpose, not quite catch-all. So that's something to think about. And as far as lunch and coffee breaks, those are modern standards. We have one, but we'll get into a little bit more about how we reduce redundancy, and we don't need to create a lunch. We're not asking for a lunch and coffee break for the police station and a lunch and coffee break for the fire department and then a separate one for City Hall. We're asking, or we're considering, or what we believe needs to happen is that we reduce redundancy and combine all of our needs and have a one-stop shop for all of them.
The nice thing about that facility is there's only a little bit of asbestos in there. There's not very much. We've got, it's just in the flooring, about 10 years, actually more like 13 years ago. A lot of the asbestos was removed out of that City Hall building. And we've tested this building as well, and there wasn't any asbestos in there. It's mostly just in the kitchen tiles, and those are covered.
And then also to hit on the temperature control in there. Something to know what folks across the nation are learning is that when some of the modern equipment that's coming in for police officers and some of the storage requirements require that you keep your equipment at a certain temperature. And I think this is true for the fire department as well. A lot of this very expensive equipment that they have, it doesn't like extreme weather changes. And also there's a lot of evidence that has to be kept at a regular temperature. Otherwise you end up having problems and it degrades and it becomes has less value to you as far as evidentiary value for testing and whatnot later. That's a real problem. And I know for sure in our little police station back there and in our fire station, in fact, so much so that I donated an air conditioner last year, a little portable air conditioner. But the problem is that the old electrical system over there isn't really up to continuing to work. That thing just blows circuits constantly. So that's not a real fix for the problem that they're having over there.
And I can tell you, I'm from the South, I'm from Arkansas, it gets hot in there. And I've been at that building gets very, very hot. It actually blew my mind how hot it was, the server in there, so.
Can I just add to that? So we just acquired a set of mannequins that through a grant that basically they're advanced life support mannequins, which gives paramedics, intermediates, all those people the ability to do advanced airways, all those kind of things. They're $35,000 mannequins. And they were actually taken away from other fire departments in the area and granted to us because they were not maintaining them, and they have to maintain a certain temperature. And you'll see them when you go to my office, they're all spread out on the floor because I haven't gotten to find a safe spot for them yet. So that's when we talk about needing climate control, that's why they're not in here.
Okay. What does the Gearhart Police Station need? These are some of the other items that are on there. OSHA required locker rooms, insufficient security for evidence, no covered area for outdoor activities, ADA standards, ergonomic workstations. Well, we've been working on that. Actually, you've done a pretty good job of getting the workstations up to date, much better now. Safe areas for firearms, training room, storage. We talked about a lot of these. Fire department needs. Fire department, this building has been doing a really good job for us for many years, 68. Excuse me. 1958, yeah, over 60 years. So compliance with NFPA and OSHA standards to address health risks and operational efficiency. One of the things that happens when you're in this room and we start these diesel engines, this room fills full of smoke. And so that smoke is absorbed by everything. One of the things we're trying as a fire community, and this is across the United States and the world, is to try to reduce cancer risk for firefighters. These volunteers are already going into dangerous situations, leaving their families, dinner, lunch, breakfast, sleeping, you know, by providing them with something a little bit safer, a little bit better. So it would be a building that would be able to vacate that exhaust. Usually it's something that hooks up to the vehicles before we start. But kidney cancer is big within the fire service, and that's because we absorb what we're in, right? Upgraded facilities for decontamination equipment, storage, and response readiness. The firefighters do go through a lot on these calls. They see things that most people don't get a chance to see and probably don't want to and do. And when we come back, or when they come back, a lot of times that they have substances on them. They have smoke from fires, EMS calls, which we run a lot of, create a lot of situations for us. And we have one bathroom here. You know, we have a little wash sink right back in through there, and then one bathroom in there, but no shower. And those are all but required now for firefighters to be able to clean up, because A, they don't want to get into their car, spread that into their vehicles, right? But they're doing that now. And B, they don't want to take it home. You know, they don't want to get this stuff in the home. So, you know, we wear our turnouts, they wear their turnouts, their protective gear and all of that. And then just the modern infrastructure to support heavy apparatus, you know, some carcinogen exposure and staff well-being. You know, these are volunteers. We want to take good care of them, and we are, but it would be a little bit better with the newer facility.
So a couple of pictures that was on that slide there. So that's just from not even a major rainstorm. What you see, the water on the floor there, it blows in through the doors behind you. There was one picture that we weren't able to put in there, but the whole area in front of the apparatus is flooded full of water. Not only does it let water in, there's no drains to let the water come out once it gets in here. So the water is a big issue, concern with any minor storm that we have. When it rains, it all comes in here, which is obviously huge slip hazards and trip stuff, and not doing well for the equipment. And then that picture on the bottom left is that door right over there. If you notice, there's a sign on it that says "Open slowly from the center." When we're responding to fire calls, there's somewhat of a sense of an urgency when we're responding to those calls. Seconds mean minutes, and minutes mean lives. If that door gets open at any moderate rate of speed, what happens is what you see in that picture, and it pops off the tracks. And it takes about a half hour, 45 minutes to reset it to get it back on the tracks before we can even get the apparatus out of the door. So we have to lift it up right above our heads, and then there's our fancy, super cool performance stick right over there that we use and push it up the rest of the way, just to get it open so we can get the apparatus out.
A lot of these things can be fixed, right? We can put some time into it. We can do a lot of repairs, and we are, and we're constantly doing that. But where do you start? Where do you stop? You know, and when we're talking about a new building, we could put a ventilation system in here to take care of and evacuate the smoke. Very expensive, but we could do that. We could do a better situation for that air compressor so that it takes clean air rather than dirty air, because that's what fills the air tanks for them. But it's just, you know, how much money are we going to continue to put into this sort of thing? And that's a question for all of you as well.
And I'd like to.
Okay.
Could I jump in here?
Yeah, go ahead, Dana.
So what I would argue that some of our problems are not solvable. And when we're presenting these problems to you, they may sound like just things that we'd like to have, but these are things that have been identified. A lot of these things have been identified as OSHA as requirements, and there's a reason why they are requirements, and that's because they keep our volunteers and our staff safer. And when OSHA creates a regulation, it's not something that you can just choose to ignore. And their regulations have a real reason. For example, when we talked about the water on the floor, well, OSHA requires that you have a cement floor that is heavy duty enough to support the fire apparatus, but also that it have drains. If we were to cut into our existing floors and try and create drains, and we don't even know how deep or how thick our floors are, I would just say that would be not something that anybody would come in and advise us to do. OSHA requirements also require that you protect staff. As we said, there are a lot of carcinogens in the area, and OSHA has standards regarding sanitation and regarding decontamination, and they are very, very strict. And basically what they say is that you have to keep areas like the kitchen and the bathrooms and changing areas strictly protected from your areas where you have exhaust. And we could, like you said, one of the things that we've been going back and forth over is whether we should snorkel the apparatus that fills up our tanks, the oxygen tanks. But one of the things we also have to consider is that we've been advised not to do that, that it might interfere with our warranty. The company that makes that system does not recommend it. It shortens the life. And that's a very expensive piece of equipment. So you're always weighing, do we do it or do we not do it? What's more expensive? What's less expensive? And what's best for us in the long term. So that's another issue. And then as far as the sanitation goes, they don't play. When we'll talk about that a little bit further down the road, but when OSHA says you have to do something, they're pretty serious about it. And they know how firefighters are put at risk. And it's not always just carcinogens. There are a significant number of firefighters that are injured in the station from either crushing injuries, or other injuries because of the layout, because of a poor layout. And I would say we are at risk of all of those things right now in our current station. And having said that, I'm going to hand it back to you.
And it's not just the firefighters here too, it's the police officers as well. There's been times, I remember Ian's come in a couple of times with quite a bit on his uniform. I haven't had the opportunity to meet you like that yet, but just getting in here and cleaning up after something like some of these tough calls that they go on is a good idea. Again, originally built by volunteers, and we're on sand here, and this is actually some fill sand. I don't know if all of you know this, but the actual original topography of Gearhart is where the Trails End Art Center is. It's down about what, 6-8 feet from here. If you look at the very old pictures in Gearhart, I tried to figure out forever the corduroy road that used to go like this and dip. And then I'd stand over there and look at it, and I couldn't put it together where that picture was, because that picture was done before this land here in this area was all filled in. It used to dip through here and be part of a drainage area. So we will have to deal, if the community chooses this location, for some foundation work and how to deal with that. But wherever we build, it's going to be a little bit difficult. Because of the critical infrastructure side of things is required by the state. Anything else?
Yeah, I wanted to pose a thought question for everybody here. How many of you guys own a home? Just like show hands, right? How many bathrooms do you have for your home? 1, 2, 3. How many people live in your house, right? Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 28 of us fighting for that, and I will tell you, I will win.
She's pretty scrappy.
Yeah, but that's just to put in perspective, though. I mean, you're asking 28 people to share a bathroom, and in a normal house, we're looking at 2-3 bathrooms minimum for 2 people, 4 people, right? That's all. I just want to put that bug in your head.
Also, think back to that picture of the water on the floor, and those were actually rather mild pictures of the water on the floor. They actually sent me a picture that's not included here because it's hard to tell from the picture that it's the entire floor is covered in water. And you have to remember that this electrical system was installed back in 1958, may or may not have been improved a little bit in 62, but that was the last time that electrical system was touched. So you no longer have electrical outlets where you need them. You don't have sufficient outlets to support your needs anymore. So there are extension cords running all over that place. Can you imagine that with that water on the floor? I mean, I hate to even imagine what type of problems we could have.
Some of these extension cords are meant to be there, like these ones that are dropping down from the ceiling. We plug the trucks into them, and it charges things like the defibrillators, it charges the flashlights, it charges the thermal imaging cameras, charges all the information or the stuff that we use. So that's what that is for. Anything else, Chief, at the moment?
Not yet.
Okay, we can do a walk around a little bit. Heavy apparatus, kitchen, bollards to protect the station walls, but we haven't hit that yet. These walls are our best guess, and some of the digging that we've done in the corners is, this is hollow cinder block. So there's no concrete or rebar in them. And because it was done by volunteers. Critical infrastructure, we are required to build a different type of building, like the water station here. This is kind of a house of cards right now. We get a little shaker here. It could be very interesting, likely bury the vehicles that are in here. So that's one of the reasons for this. And you'll see, as you go outside, you'll see cracks that are going through the cinder blocks that are from the ground all the way up through the top. Hasn't been that much movement around here, but it's enough to make us wonder and be very careful when we're backing vehicles into this building. OSHA standards, again, Councilor Dana was talking a little bit about those: fire protection, egress, interior areas, separations, things like that. Usually with systems, it's fairly simple. Those are things we can accomplish as well. Many of the needs identified by the two departments do overlap. We work very closely together. A good architect with expertise in designing of police and fire facilities will be able to help the city plan a solution that reduces the needs for multiple spaces, serving the same or compatible needs. Otherwise referring to as redundancy. By creating multi-purpose spaces for the two departments, the police and the fire, to share, the city could address each department's needs while eliminating space waste and redundancy. Speaking of which, if we could get the police department and the fire department out of City Hall, we would use that space to do 2 more small offices and make the meeting room a little bit bigger. That's just the idea, but we still have to go through all of those things. But I think that right now, the idea is to maintain that 1972 building and to make it work a little bit better. Overcoming financial challenges. Of course, Gearhart does not have the cash to pay for a new station. Not many communities do, especially small ones. We have learned a lot from the past bond measure failures to develop a more acceptable proposal, and hence with the mayor and the council, we're taking our time, or at least going through the process, not taking our time. We're actively working very hard on this. Engaging with the community, potential for phased development, or seeking grants and other financial aids. We've been working a lot on grants over the years, and I know some people ask, well, where are all the grants? And to tell you the truth, most of our apparatus that are at the fire station, half have been purchased through grants, through FEMA. We've been very successful on that. The self-contained breathing apparatus that the fire department uses, each one of those are about $6,000 a piece. Those were all purchased on grants. You just wrote another grant for the dummies that we've had.
Yes.
Over the years, we've written over $1 million in grants to keep things going in. The community did buy that fire engine over there, and that was done through a 5-year loan through a bank. Anytime the city of Gearhart needs more than $100,000 that it does not have, it goes to the voters. It's a pretty low amount for a community, but it's working. So the community of Gearhart voted that in, and it was paid off in 5 years for that engine. It's a great engine.
Can I add on the grants?
Yeah.
So at the last work session, Rita had brought up a book that was funding options for I'm trying to think, just funding options, basically. She's like, well, we built the whole city of Seaside's library off of grants. So I went to the library, I got said book, which they're actually not making anymore. It's 676 pages that I personally went through every single grant, because my goal is to make this work for everybody. 676 pages, there's 284 grants. There's what we would qualify for is about 50 grants. 48 that are not, that are possible because of not being a 501c3. Only 6 of those grants would be for capital improvements. 6. And if we were to get the max of all 6 of those grants, like I would have to literally be a full-time grant writer, get the max of those 6 grants, we're looking at $60,000 maybe out of that entire amount of grants. Now, on the other hand, if I was to go for equipment, personnel, operations, things like that, there's a lot more options. But most of these places want to see that you have the facility
to function with. So we could, in theory, function better with, or provide grants for things, like I said, like the personnel, the equipment, things like that, but it's just not possible, even with FEMA, to do infrastructure. That's the hard part. I did also go through FEMA's alternative funding sources, and there's only one for Oregon, it's ODOT, and they've already used their money for the year, and they also do not fund infrastructure. Again, we have like AFG grants, things like that. An AFG grant takes about 3 years. You have to apply for 3 years before they'll even consider your application.
For equipment.
For equipment, and then if you were to do a safer grant for personnel, you have to still pay for half. So there's a lot of factors that go into that, but I want you, we're not blind to the fact that we're asking for something from you guys, right? We are willing to give you as much as we can, but we need a little in return. And I know it's a little, but we can't do the infrastructure without you guys.
So the next steps, conducting a comprehensive needs assessment with some professional expertise. We'll get into that, but really delve into call volumes, sizes, things that we need as a basic, for a basic fire station and that. Then develop a detailed plan addressing both immediate and long-term needs, and continue community engagement and transparency throughout the planning and implementation phases so that you're a part of those discussions. That's what I had to get started. Sir, that's all I've got for now.
Chad, can I add just a little bit?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I wanted to address some of the things, some of the chatter that I've seen online on the local social media groups, and also some of the questions that I saw personally. What I was not part of the last fire bond issue. I was not part of government at that time, but some of the questions that I saw frequently come up. The first one was, why do we need a locker room? What does that mean? Why do we need a locker room? Well, again, we've talked a little bit about OSHA standards. OSHA standards 1910.120, for those of you who have a lot of time on your hands and like to look into these kinds of things. And also OSHA standard 1910.141 have to do with hazardous waste and emergency response and sanitation. And both of those require that you have a separate location or a location at the work site for employees who may be exposed to contaminants to go and decontaminate. It's specifically some of the letters that OSHA has written to other employers, specifically advise them against requiring their employees or their staff to get into their personal cars, possibly contaminating their personal cars, and drive to their own personal homes and contaminate their personal homes. They're not playing with that. They're very serious about that. And that is something that we owe it to the people that are serving our community to address. And that doesn't apply just to the fire department. That also can apply to the police department. As you can imagine, when you go to a car accident and airbags go off, or there's a fire, or bloodborne contaminants present, our police officers are also exposed to those things. And the last thing that we want them to have to do is go all the way home, leave our city uncovered while they're decontaminating, and come back, even if OSHA were to allow that. So there are two reasons why we want to do that. Number one, we have to. It's not something that we can ignore when OSHA says you have to do it. But number two, it's good for our community because it will improve our response times and their availability to serve our community. Another thing that has come up, to piggyback on the grants, people are asking about grants. Everybody sitting before you at the white tables, we're all well, I think at least as far as the counselors, we're all taxpayers too in the city of Gearhart. And we're going to do whatever we can to reduce our exposure as well. I don't like to spend money. That's the whole reason why I'm volunteering and serving in city council, is to keep my overhead costs down and to address it in the best way that I can. I have been part of groups that have gone for grants before successfully. What you typically find when you go through the grant processes, what they're looking for is community support. They're also looking for a well-founded plan, a plan that looks like it's viable and you know what you're doing, so that they're not wasting their money when they give it to you. So both of those things have to be in place before we can consider grants, but often with grants, there is a match. They require you to put up a percentage of the grant, and it can depend on the grant. Some of it can be 20%, some of it could be 50%. So those are all things that we are certainly going to look into, but that is a little bit down the road. But we still have to be able to tell them that this is something we're going to go forward with. We already have a plan. It's a viable plan. We're not just asking you to pay for a pipe dream if we ask for grant money. And then the next thing is there's been a lot of talk about why aren't we combining with Seaside? Chad, do you want me to continue or do you want to address that? Because I'll be happy to talk a little bit about it.
Sure. So there has been a lot of conversations about, well, we don't, maybe the city of Gearhart does not need its own little fire department. Again, we've done over 700 calls a year, respond fairly quickly, and they do a fantastic job. Highly trained people. We've got Division Chief Andy here, who's new. For those of you that haven't met her, she's new to us anyway, but she comes with a lot of experience. She's Division Chief of Training, so she keeps everybody up in their training, which is a huge job. And she's also a paramedic. We have EMTs that have spent over 10 credit course units trying to get their EMT licensing. Hardest test I've ever taken. That includes the private pilot's test is easier than the EMT test. We have a good amount of those. We have a lot of first responders as well. So we have a lot of medical folks and we do a pretty good job, but the conversation has been, well, we could just build maybe something a little bit smaller, turn it into a substation and have another community come in and do our firefighting services for us. We can combine with them. There's a lot of challenges to that sort of situation. And part of it is that Gearhart loses a little bit of its identity, right? We have this great little fire department, 4th of July, firefighters ball, bringing the grandkids, bringing the kids down to the fire station is all part of it. And maybe some of that would still continue. But if we went with another community, it would be a very difficult operation. The first thing to do is to kind of get it out into a vote. If we were to go with Seaside, for an example, Seaside's got its own rural fire protection district, similar to what we do, that pays them taxes and pays those taxes to the city of Seaside for their coverage. So each one of those communities would have to vote out of their districts to do that. So that's 2 votes that would need to happen. Then all 4 communities, the district, the city of Gearhart, the city of Seaside, and the Gearhart Rural Fire Protection District would have to agree and vote in to a district. And then that way we'd be able to combine to whoever's going to be in charge. Let's say that's Seaside, just for conversation's sakes. So Seaside would be in charge of the Gearhart Fire Department. We would still need a building here in Gearhart, right? Maybe it would only need to be 3 bays rather than 4, depending on what apparatus they need here. But you're also going to need full-time firefighters here because as you're going pro or as you're going paid, you lose your volunteers. The volunteers are not making vehicles anymore. They're not, the training has changed. The training's not changed at all. As a matter of fact, it's exactly the same. But what's happening in some of these other communities that you see that are gaining more and more paid firefighters, look what's happening to their volunteers. They're losing them. The little city of Gearhart has the most volunteers in the county. We also have the fewest paid firefighters, I think, other than maybe Lewis and Clark. For example, I think the city of Cannon Beach, who does less calls than the city of Gearhart, has how many paid firefighters?
They're up to 10 or 11 now. And they do
We have
200
two.
calls less a year.
200 calls a year. They're looking at 11 because their area is very difficult to live in. Cannon Beach has been going through this a lot longer than most of the other fire departments have with the expense of living there. So you get people in Cannon Beach, you get more paid. Volunteers are not making any of the vehicles. So the volunteers start rolling out and now they have very few volunteers, but they've got their paid folks. Think about a yearly cost for what a paid fire department would cost. If we were going to have 24-hour coverage, which you have right now, you have 24-hour coverage of 25 volunteers and 2 paid folks. If we were going to do that, you'd need to have at least 2 people on a fire engine.
Standard is 3.
Okay.
NFPA standard is 3. You have to have a 3.
Okay. So sorry, 3 people
Sorry.
per fire engine to get to a fire and put out a house. So you need 3 people sleeping here or being here 24 hours a day paid. That's 1 shift. You need the other shift on the other side because they usually work 24-hour shifts on, 48 off. So you'd have another shift to cover that and 1 more shift to cover that. So you need at least 9 firefighters to cover a community like this. Each firefighter with their costs, I don't have the exact amount, and we'll get into this in more detail. But if you're paying a firefighter about 80,000, which seems to be the starting point these days. If you ever try to buy a house around here on $80,000, not happening. That's why recruitment's so tough. So you're looking at about $125,000, $150,000 per firefighter with everything included, including health insurance and all that. Again, you need 3 on it all day. You're looking at about 9 of those. So that is a yearly expense of close to, if not over, I think it is over $1 million just to pay for your firefighters. Right now, our entire firefighter budget is about 160. Yeah. Our yearly payroll for fire department personnel costs.
Yeah, that's our personnel.
Yeah, just for personnel costs, about 170, 180, somewhere in there. So you'd have to take that from 180 to go to about $1 million, probably. And that's for having 3 people here 24 hours a day. So there's a lot of challenges. And who's to say that that's not going to happen in the future? But who's to say we couldn't build a building that can take care of our volunteers today? And then if that happens, we were talking about this in 1996, 97 when I joined. Where are we going to get the firefighters? All the loggers are moving out of town. All the builders are moving out of town. Well, we made it. We've continually kept our numbers up pretty good. And they're still coming in these days. And these guys are hustling to get them trained up. So those would be some of the things that we would have to consider. The math is kind of tough. It would be kind of hard on this, on the community. It would be expensive for sure. And we'd still need a building for them to house.
And we would still need a police station, and we would still need a police station with all of the bare minimums that if we're already going to build those, why wouldn't we build those for our fire department also? So what we're looking for here, positive, I think everybody wants a positive outcome for the people in our city, should they need a first responder to show up. So they're looking for a quick response time. I don't think that switching to just Seaside, I don't know if people imagine or have in their head exactly how that would work or really understand the science of deployment. You could, in some ways, you could consider, I guess the best analogy would be to consider Clatsop County, something similar to Portland. Now, the entirety of Portland could not be covered by one station, and they don't want one station covering a vast area. Why? Because then the response time within that area becomes slower, and that's what we would be looking at. The science of deployment is not only about how fast you can get an engine to a house, but it's also speed. Certain calls, as Andy was talking about, certain calls require a certain number of people, and if we were to go to a full-on paid staff, those numbers would even go up. But different types of emergencies require a different number of trucks. A minor emergency might only require 1 truck, but they have rules about when you have this type of emergency, you have to have this many trucks. And if you're not able to provide that many trucks, you have a problem. So when you take out one station, let's say if you were to go to Portland to take out one station and say that station is now going to be served by a station that's farther away, you're really messing with response times. You're messing with coverage, and that's not a good plan. We would also lose our equipment. That would be a problem. But and as Chad talked about, it would cost us a lot more. I mean, we need a fire station. We need a police station. We can save some of our money in those two by having an overlap that reduces redundancy. So we're not paying for 2 locker rooms, for 2 this and 2 that. We can combine a lot of that stuff to save money, but we can't do that if we're going to send our services or expect Seaside to provide our services. Then Seaside, well, number one, Seaside would have to agree to that, which nobody I know or nobody I've spoken with, they don't sound like they're really thrilled about that. It sounds like they have enough on their hands and they still need us because we respond to a lot of their calls. That's the part that gets lost in that discussion. They need us to be there to help them respond to a lot of their calls. So we would still need that. And I think when people say, well, we'd just build a smaller substation, I don't think they really understand that a smaller substation still has to meet all of the modern requirements that OSHA requires and all all of the other things that they have to do. So it wouldn't address any of those problems. And then again, we'd end up paying for a small substation, whatever that means to somebody's mind. I can tell you it would be a lot more expensive than you're thinking. We'd still have to pay for a police station. And then on top of that, we'd be paying for salaries that we are not paying for right now. Right now, the Gearhart Rural Fire District, the money that we get from them covers all of our salaries. Does that sound right to you?
And I have
Yeah,
a couple more thoughts on that, if I could, real quick.
Yes, please.
So about coverage and response times and stuff, I've always said that countywide we operate as one fire department. To kind of help with that, the county had a structure fire in Astoria 3 weeks ago. Something like that. And the fire chief sent this email out. He said, "Chiefs, I just wanted to say quick thanks to everyone for your work on our box alarms. Me being an outsider, we didn't use box alarms. I can say I'm grateful to whoever started this here in Clatsop County. I'm thankful for all the chiefs over the years who have worked hard to keep them updated. I'm also proud of how well we come together at our larger incidents. At my second alarm fire the other morning, I really felt like it was one department on that call. So for that, thank you for all again. I'd like to recognize the many chiefs in our county that participated, a couple long meetings last month, and a couple major updates and improvements that we did. Along with that, was some stats and information. Before I kind of list those out, when you're talking about merging and pay rates and standardizing pay, I would get a pay raise. So first, I just want to tell you that I would benefit from that. So I say that to say the next parts. Well, even when we were hiring for our division chief position, there was lieutenants at Seaside that wouldn't apply for our division chief position because it'd be a pay cut. And how titles and rankings go, there's firefighter, lieutenant, captain, division chief, and chiefs. So there's lieutenants, the bottom level officer at Seaside, that would not apply for the second to the top position in Gearhart because they get a pay cut. From the research I've done, I'm about the third lowest paid chief in the state of Oregon. So now that you know why I only benefit from merging, let me kind of explain some other stuff with that. In the past 2 years, Gearhart Fire has sent out 211 auto mutual aid. So 211 times Gearhart went to another district, another agency. That includes the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office when we go on mobilizations, when we go to Cannon Beach, when we rescue people off of Saddle Mountain, everywhere we go. In 2 years, we sent out aid 211 times. Out of those 211 times, 144 was to Seaside. In the past 2 years, we received aid 61 times. So only 61 times in the past 2 years, and that's a total of 1,501 incidents that we had in the last 2 years, we asked for help 61 times. The fire chief in Seaside has said this many times. He said it to anybody who asks him, why would I get rid of Gearhart? Because Gearhart is my first backup. What we do here isn't just some little thing. What we do here is a huge deal. And we talk about career departments and volunteers. Every volunteer, and there's some of them wearing their fancy med coats back there. They have the exact same certifications and the exact same trainings that a Portland firefighter does and a Seattle firefighter does. And they do it for free for you guys. So merging has huge things you have to walk through and you have to work out. I would appreciate to get a pay raise. So let's go through that route. If you want to go through that route, it's going to add on a lot more things on.
Then I want to add another little thing to your box about the word substation. So this is just Google. I come from, like I said, this is not my first station. We have a substation. Do you know that? The rural fire department, is there staffing there like there is here? No, that's a storage facility. So Canby Fire, they have a substation. It is not staffed. Lyons Fire District has a substation that is basically storage for them. So substation, literally, if you Google it, you can Google it to match me right now. If you do substation, a subordinate station for the fire or police department, which gives you a link to the word subordinate, which says lower in rank or position of less or secondary importance. Do you think that we would have staff here if we built a substation for Seaside? The answer is no. We would get the worst of their equipment, just like everyone else in the state of Oregon when it comes to the word substation. I could literally name every single substation in the state of Oregon and tell you what their services are like. They are zero. SIO has 2 substations and they have 0 responders out of 0 substations. Just because you have a substation does not make your ISO rating any better. Lion substation has 0 responders, their ISO rating is 10. Yeah, just because you have a station and it has 1 apparatus in it that never gets maintenance because it is, like they said, a subordinate station. Is treat or regard as of lesser importance than something else. I've heard from a lot of you guys at the last thing that well, you guys want an ambulance. We want an ambulance, you want medical services. We're giving you the medical services. If not, we're getting to you faster than medics do. We are providing you the exact same service, except for putting you in a box and taking you to the hospital as a medic's ambulance. If we build a substation, we're not gonna get an ambulance here. But I guarantee you, there is a very good possibility, looking at this ASA agreement, that if you want an ambulance, we can maybe arrange that. But we have to have the infrastructure. I can't store ALS medications in these cabinets. Okay, they're in my office. So the medications to save your life can't be stored out here. Their temperature, their light, they have to be locked. They have to have ability to sleep here because those services are 24/7. They have to be able to park in here. So you guys just have to decide what you want. We'll make it happen. We have been for years.
Is that it? Dana, do you have anything else?
No, I think that we've said more than enough. We're still working on the preliminary needs assessment. We're hoping to. It's raining here too. But we're gonna get out more information to the public to help them make decisions in the future. But what we really need right now, I think, is an understanding of, we're not asking for the Taj Mahal. We're not asking for something larger. We're looking for a modern environment that will protect the city of Gearhart from liability, that will best serve our community, that will provide adequate safety and security concerns for our police department, that will protect our folks for the next 20 years. The buildings that we have, they've done very well up until now, but they are not going to serve us for the next 20 years. And we sooner or later, we're going to have to invest in it, I believe. And so what we need is the public to tell us how they want us to do that. Help us decide what to do going forward.
Thank
we're
you.
not ridiculous things, I don't think.
Okay, I'm gonna move to another area. Councillor Sharon, would you like to say something?
Yeah.
You may. I think.
Okay. While thinking about the firehouse issue, I realized that it had some similarities to situations I have encountered in my medical career. Of the 29 years I spent as a physician assistant, 18 of those were seeing patients in a dermatology practice. So I would like to put a skin scenario in front of you for consideration, because it has some of the same thought processes as we are experiencing in deciding where to go with our emergency services facilities. Say you notice a tiny bump on your face. For most of us, the usual reaction would be to watch it and hope it resolves, or at least doesn't get larger. After a month, it has grown slightly, so you decide to help it along by putting some acne medicine on it. Maybe you will try several products over 2 months' time. The treatments don't seem to be curing it, but it is still relatively small, less than the size of a pencil eraser. So the question is, do you get it checked by a professional? You might procrastinate for a variety of reasons, including your busy schedule and money you don't want to spend. Finally, you realize that it might be something worrisome, so you make an appointment to see a dermatology practitioner. They take a look at it and say, we need to act on this, so a biopsy is done. The results come back as skin cancer. Removal is scheduled. The possible outcomes are that it is the most common kind of skin cancer, and they got it all, and it was the same size as what was visible. Or that it was an uncommon skin cancer and larger than was thought. Or in some worst case scenarios, it had eaten into the muscle or bone or spread into the lymph system. So my questions to you are, where do you think we are in our decision-making? Are the city emergency facilities in the presenting stage of this scenario? Or are we at the point where we consult the professional? Have we waited so long that a larger problem has been created, necessitating more treatment and money? Is waiting further going to serve us well as a community? What is your risk tolerance? What are you willing to see the community lose? I present this example and ask these questions in the hope that it might help guide you in deciding what is best for our city. Thank you for your attention and consideration.
Thank you, Sharon. Rita, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Not at this time.
Preston, do you have something you'd like to say?
Not at this time.
Okay. Well, shall we move into the polling?
Sure.
If you're all on poll EV, bring it up on your phone if you've got it.
Yeah.
Here we go. What?
Sure, sure.
Come. Screen should look like this.
You may need to refresh your phone. You may need to start over. If it's not working, you can go to your Google browser on your phone, Safari, whatever you use, and go to pollev.com/WS2. Anybody need any assistance? Seem to be working. Does it say it's waiting? Thumbs up? I'm getting most thumbs up.
Okay.
Okay, we'll give everybody online a minute or two. Says it's waiting for WS2 to start. So the questions will come up once I hit the next button. Then your phone will show those questions. It'll also throw them up on the screen. Is anybody online having some major troubles? Okay. Ready to go, sir?
Yes, sir.
First question should come up, please, work. Did I? All right, this is a test question.
I didn't get it.
It might take them a little bit of time.
We need to refresh. Sometimes pull down so you can refresh your web browser.
Not quite that far, so go back up, all the way on there, and pull down from about there down. There you go.
It seems to be working.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Everybody pretty well got it? That's, I'm so pleased to see that response. We've been telling people in the, at the grade schools for the last, 15 years. It's lying to kids, but it's funny. It's like, why are our trucks green? Tell them they're faster than the red ones. They've been telling the Seaside folks that for a long time. Was a previous city administrator who was watching some special on the news one time, saw what they were doing in Europe and decided to have our trucks come in slime green, and
They're more.
we've learned to love it. All right, so it shows that 92% says Gearhart green, 8% says change to boring red like everyone else. It's a poorly worded question. All right, so the next question. Do you think the current fire station can fulfill the city's needs over the next 20 years? So this is going on, people that are online are able to do this? I'll wait for things to kind of stabilize a little bit and give some people an opportunity.
Sharon, do you know how many people are online? Just give us my.
33.
Okay. Looks like that's stabilized. Everybody good? All right, the next question. Do you think the current police station can fulfill the city's needs over the next 20 years?
If your phone goes to sleep or something, if you just refresh your web, like you pull down from the top, you get the little circle thing, then it should catch yourself.
Okay. Looks like it's stabilized. I'm going to move on. Still got a few changes coming on, so some people are still answering. All right, next question. Do you believe we need a new building for the fire department and police department? Looks like it's working. Yeah, I think there's a way if you answer incorrectly, you can hit the trash can on the right-hand side and go again. Some of these questions will ask you to type in the answers as well. Okay, I think we've stabilized. Should the current fire station constructed from non-reinforced cinder blocks featuring only one small bathroom for all, lacking storage facilities without personal hazmat, be replaced with a new building?
I think they're all loaded.
Yeah, these came from the counselors and we decided to leave them all in and just ask the question 3 or 4 different ways here.
Want to make sure we understand.
Yes and no is pretty clear.
Could you call out the percentages whether they've settled down? Because I can't see.
Sure, we'll do. So far, we're at 88% yes and 12% no. And again, by voting, it's not costing you any money today. Okay? That's later. All right, so 90 and 10%. Next question. Should the new fire police, and we're calling it a public safety building, be located at the existing location in downtown Gearhart? So far, we're looking at about 73, 74% yes, 26% no. Kind of close to that last vote. All right, 72 and 28, I'm going to go on. I'm going to try again. Which location do you prefer for the public safety building? Well, this was the questions between Leslie Miller Dune Meadows Park, which is just west of the water treatment facility. That was an idea that we played around with for a period of time, or the current location. So far, we're looking at about 36% says Leslie Miller, 65 current location. And it's good. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one. All right, if you have another opinion, where should this facility be built? This is where you can type in your answer. If you've got another idea. Existing location, current locations popping up. Join Seaside. Dunes Park. Someplace on high ground. Downtown. Downtown. Gearhart. Highlands. Leslie Miller. Old Elementary School. Not in a tsunami zone. Outside the inundation zone. The cottages acreage. Same location as the current facility. Proposed area north of Gearhart. Current location. Outside tsunami. I'll let this build for just a little bit longer. Leslie Miller. Old Gearhart School. By the old grade school, City Hall, police, build fire station behind. Leslie Miller at downtown at Gearhart School. Not on parkland, existing location, current location. Woodland. Right, who lives on Woodland?
That's responsible.
Islands, out of the inundation zone, not at all. Elementary school, downtown, and we're recording this, so these, this information will be given to the council and then we'll talk about it again in a future area. Look into joining Seaside Park. Gearhart School, now, so you can answer as many times as you like. But I'm gonna go ahead and call it here pretty quick so we can move on. Because I'm not seeing any new things. You all right with going forward?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna move on. If you prefer the existing site, are you comfortable with the risk of all equipment being potentially ruined in a flood? Looks like 63% yes, 37% no. Okay, so 65-35. Go on to the next question. We're getting close. Will you vote for a public safety building if it's located anywhere else than the current location? So far, we're at 54% for yes and 45% for no. Okay, that's stabilizing. We're gonna call that a 60-40. Should we construct a public safety building equipped with sleeping quarters for firefighters? There's a lot of information about that we haven't gone into.
Can I talk about that for real quick? If you, am I on there?
Sure.
So what we're describing here, if it's worked through, is we're not housing firefighter. What it would look like is dorm room. Or it could be anything for staff for a long incident like 2007 storms. I think there was a cot in the city administrator's office. So the city administrator can get some rest for the police officers. Another potential use would be for interns. Seaside Fire Department has 4 interns because they have 4 dorm rooms. Just last weekend, they tested 17 more for potential interns. They're looking at building 4 to 6 more rooms for those. Now that's after applications, resumes, and interviews. They tested for 17 more. For 17 tested, they're not gonna add 17 more, sorry. For that, the interns are almost a free firefighter. We have budgeted for 2 interns. They get their schooling and while they're here with that, and in turn, the city gets almost free firefighters once schooling costs is paid for from there. So it is a room that's just for interns that we already have budget for as a potential use for that. Now, that structure fire that we had, that spectrum alarm structure fire in Astoria, Seaside was able to staff it with 4 people. 2 of those people was their paid full-time firefighters and 2 was the intern.
And another thing on the interns, so Black Butte Fire, has such a phenomenal intern program. They only have like 2 paid people, the chief and like an administrative assistant, and they run entirely on the interns. And if you have a phenomenal program like them, when I started in 2007, I wanted to be an intern. There was 100+ applicants to be an intern at Black Butte Fire because they will get hired after their intern. They will get hired. They have such a phenomenal reputation. We have such a good reputation. I don't see how we couldn't function like that. To this day, they are still running with over 100 to 200 applications for an intern. So to say volunteerism isn't dead, we're still 80% volunteer in the world. There's gonna be, everyone starts out somewhere. And Black Butte has harnessed that and made it intern program so good that they don't have to have paid guys.
And even though we have in the budget to have 2 interns, right now we have none, simply because we don't have a place to put them.
Yeah. So the part of that is you sleep here. This is by far the only, even Brighton Bush has sleeping dorms. And that's a fire brigade where I work. This is the only fire department I've ever worked at that doesn't have a place to sleep. And even then, even if you weren't to put interns in there in 2020, when I fought the Beach Creek fire, there were so many of us, we would take turns in the rooms, but every single department had rooms to sleep in. I was on for 96 hours straight with 0 sleep. These are real life things. To say that we are exempt because we're a small town is null and void. I can't beat Redwood down. The Hill and Firebird down.
A couple other stats with that. Some studies have shown that you miss 1 hour of sleep at night, it takes 3 to 4 days of regular sleep to recover from that. So you look at prolonged stuff like the 2007 storm that happened here, a realistic thing that happened. When firefighters and city administrators and police officers went for hours and hours and hours.
Okay, stabilize, thank you. What is your biggest obstacle for voting for a new fire station? Cost. None? Price, cost, I think that's gonna be pretty consistent. Tax assessment. Locations, the high ground, cost, tax assessment, cost, none, cost. Let some people get these in here. I think there's a way to set this up to where it keeps it open for a period of time too. Figure that out.
Keeps it open and you can move to another question.
Yeah, I think so.
We should look into that.
Yeah, learning some lessons. Nothing more to do. Nothing more to do. Money, cost, location, cost and size. Lack of feasibility study by professionals. Taxpayers. Okay. Presumed personal agendas. You'll locate away from the center of town. Cost, dollars, none. Okay, folks, a couple more seconds and we're gonna move this one. It's in the inundation zone. Okay, Mayor, are you already?
Yeah.
Going on? Okay. Cost, needs versus wants. Cost. Okay, I'm gonna move on, so that'll shut this question down. What is your primary concern regarding improvements to the current police and fire facilities? Okay, so far we're looking at 44%, 40% cost to bring the current code compliance. Locations about 15%. And ensuring long-term protection and service to the community is 43%.
The answer to
And
that
then
question. I would
it's like it's kind of
lipstick on.
stabilized as far as the percentages go. We'll go to the next question.
You can't write it in.
What changes need to be made to the fire station? Check all that apply.
I am too. It's satisfying.
So far, we're looking at about 17% make larger, make improvements is about 26%. Move to another location, about 9%. Make improvements to electrical, plumbing, temperature control, and structural conditions, 26%. Make improvements to meet ADA standards, 22%. No changes are needed. We are at 1%. I do love this little fire station. That's super small. Okay, so that's starting to stabilize. I don't see any major changes. Gonna move on. What changes need to be made to the police station? Okay, same thing.
It wasn't me, I'm not voting.
So far we got make larger 17%, make improvements 25%, move to another location 9%. Make improvements to electrical, plumbing, temperature, etc. 26%. Improvements to ADA standards 22%. No changes needed 2%. Okay, that's stabilizing. I'm gonna move forward. Should Gearhart consider merging with Seaside Fire Department, knowing it would require hiring paid firefighters and still necessitate a building of a new station? So far, we're at 25% yes, 76% no. I'll do the math on that later.
Hey, it changed on you.
It's changed, so I'm in the middle saying it. I'm assuming it's accurate here. Okay, that's stabilized at 27% yes, 73% no. Next question. If the new public safety building is at current station's location, do you support purchasing the adjacent Pacific Power lot for a temporary building to house fire and public works equipment during construction? This one might take a little explaining. If we were to rebuild this station, we'd have to have an operating fire station somewhere. One of the ideas, and again, we haven't done a lot of planning on this, is there's a piece of property that's next to City Hall that's vacant. Remember where the way back in the day, they had it wasn't a substation, it was like a transfer station for Pacific Power. All the power lines came in and went out. Well, that's been vacated. They're interested in selling it to us. We haven't talked price or cost. And then that would give us more room to do things to help construct this station, maybe move over there temporarily And then afterwards to do something for the city, maybe it's parking, maybe it's moving the brush bin, who knows? Lots of ideas. So far we're looking at yes, 80%, no, 20%. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next question. 7921. Do you believe the city should hire an independent company to serve as the project manager of this idea or these ideas? Project manager is usually a group experienced in small towns, working with them. It includes getting the community together for things like this. It includes helping us find the right architects. It helps us go through the needs assessment procedures, helps us design and get that all working out. It's people that have done it before, been there and done that. So we're looking at 88% yes, 12% no. 8713. Okay, I'm going to move that forward. Would a tour of the current station with firefighters assist you in making your decision? And that is also open to the police department as well. Police officers would be helpful in showing you around if you'd like. 84% no so far. 16% yes.
Oh.
Well, I think you should try them.
Your face. What is your face? What's your face? I have a painful face.
Okay, that's kind of stabilizing. It looks like 85 and 15, 15% yes, 85% nope. Do you think electronic voting is an effective method for the council to collect public opinion? Is this fun?
There's some food you can do with like time, like colors. Yeah.
This couldn't be funner.
You've had to do it as testing quite a few times.
Yeah.
Looking like 80% yes, 20% no. To get both sides. Would you prefer town hall meetings in the afternoon or in the evenings? Okay, so far we're looking at about 65, 35, 65 evenings, 35 afternoons. Feel like we're stabilized at about 3763. That is the poll, 65-35. Okay. Take a look at.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope you had as much fun as I have going over these questions again. But I think this is a great way. If we can get more people involved on Zoom and more people in here, we can get instant feedback. And I think it's absolutely great because you can see.
Take just a second here, sir.
Okay. You will be able to see the results right now. I mean, there was a lot of information that was given out.
Okay, it looks like we had 21 questions, 56% participants, 61 average responses for an 88% for engagement. Should we keep fire apparatus green? 91%. I'm very pleased with that one. Do you think the current fire station can fulfill the city's needs over the next 20 years? 90% said yes, 10%, or excuse me, 10% said yes, 90% said no. Do you think the current police station can fulfill the city's needs over the next 20 years? 84% said no. You believe we need a new building for the fire department and police department? 92% said yes. Should the current fire station constructed from reinforced cinder blocks featuring one small bathroom, lacking storage facilities, hazmat and such? Yes, 90%, no, 10%. Should the new public safety building be located in the existing downtown Gearhart? 73% said yes. Which location do you prefer for a new public safety building? Leslie Miller or the current fire station? Current fire station was 65, Leslie Miller 35. I wish I could bring these together. 41 responses onto where should the facility be built? High ground, high-rise condos, next to condos, current location, Gearhart Grade School, Leslie Miller. It's all over the place, but a lot of existing location, current location. Some Leslie Millers, not in the tsunami zone came up. The school came up a couple times. Woodland. Existing location. If you prefer the existing site, are you comfortable with the risk of equipment being flooded? Potentially 65% said yes. It's worth the risk. Will you vote for a public safety building if it's located anywhere else other than the current location? Will you vote for a public safety building if it is located anywhere else than the current location? 60% said yes. Should we construct a public safety building equipped with sleeping quarters for firefighters? 57 said yes, 43 said no. And the thing is if you were to go paid, you'd still need sleeping areas. Let's see, what are the biggest obstacles? One of them is a ridiculous amount of money the city councilors, mayor, and city administrator wanted to spend. It's stupid to spend that kind of money for a small town, especially when we have eventually look at sewer for our town. Well, it's a lot to unpack, but got it? Too little use, tax burden, cost, inundation zone, location, dollars requested, cost, location, size. Location, cost, tax cost, price, none cost. What is your primary concern regarding improvements to fire station utilities? 45% are ensuring long-term protection and services to the community. 14% location. And then the cost to bring into code compliance was 41%. What changes need to be made to the fire station? Check all that apply. Well, that was all over the board. 15% larger. 27% make improvements to comply with OSHA, 8% move to another location, 28% improvements to electrical, 21% make improvements to meet ADA, and no changes are needed was 2 people at 1%. What changes need to be made at the police station? Check all that apply. A little bit of a different range, but similar. 2% said no changes are needed. Make improvements to ADA was 22, improvements to electrical 26. Another location, 8%. Make improvements to comply with OSHA, 26%, and make larger, 16%. Should Gearhart consider a merger with Seaside? Knowing that it would require hiring paid firefighters and still necessitate the building. 27% said yes, 73% said no. If the new public safety building is at the current location, you support purchasing adjacent Pacific Power. 79% said yes, 21% said no. Do you believe the city should hire an independent company to serve as project manager? 87% said yes, 13% said no. Would a tour of the current fire station with firefighters assist you in making your decision? Yes is 17%, no is 83%. Do you think electronic voting is an effective method? 79% said yes, 21% said no. Which do you prefer for a town hall meeting? Looks like 65% were evenings, afternoon was 35%. And that was the question, sir.
Thank you, Chad. Well. What do you think? Is this good or what? I mean, it's right there in front of you. You can see what people on Zoom are doing. I think it's absolutely wonderful. I hate technology, but this has got some cookies. Are there any questions? I see a hand raised.
Jennifer Thies, why was nothing asked about having the location to the north of us as gonna be presented in the city council coming up on Wednesday?
Coming up on Wednesday?
What's coming up on Wednesday?
We have a special city council meeting on the 28th.
That's the council talking about the potential of an advisory vote, which is actually going to be a May election to do an advisory vote that says, do you want a new fire
But one
station?
of the questions on that advisory to put on to the election was the potential of having the location to the north of us.
That was one of the questions that were on there, had that one included, but it.
No.
That is something I can't answer to because I didn't know that it was even on.
Well, it was one of the three questions that our attorney had come up with for us to discuss, and none of those are set yet. That's what the discussion on Wednesday was
Right.
about.
Right,
To actually have a discussion about whether or not to go to that next step.
right.
Right, and we're not going anywhere if we don't have agreements signed. I can tell you that. That's one of the reasons why Leslie Miller and this location were asked about. And that's because we own those two properties.
Right.
And it's not gonna cost anything.
But you're thinking about asking the residents on the voting, we were kind of voting tonight.
Right?
So why was that not asked tonight also?
It was a decision by me because I don't have a signed document with the people.
Yeah, we don't have an agreement with them yet, so I think that'll come into conversation on Wednesday too.
I won't do that. I won't offer something that I don't have assurances that I have.
So why even put it out as a potential question on our elections in May?
It's not. We have not decided on the questions. It may be a point of discussion, but if we don't have a signed agreement with them,
But you're still considering, right?
I would consider it.
Okay,
If they,
That's what she's saying, it sounds like you are still considering maybe purchasing that or an agreement with the people.
we're not buying anything. They're willing to give us property, but if it isn't a signed document, I'm not even going to discuss it. Because what I've got is firehouse burnout. Because there's been opportunities where something has been used, an offer has been said was available for a piece of property, and we never had an agreement. And I'm not wasting my time. I'm not going to do this again. This is why I'm having these town halls. That's why if it's not a signed document, we're not doing it. Anyway, that's my answer to you. It's in Wednesday, come to the council meeting. We'll see if we have a signed document by then. Because if we have one, then it'll be on the ballot. I mean, I have no problem if someone's going to give us property to put it on there. In the back,
Yeah, I don't see how that makes sense. You know, it was voted down by 70%, I believe, is what I saw in the paper, that location.
No.
Why would it be talked about at all?
No, it's not the location that was voted down. It was the cost of the station. It was never.
Well, that's your interpretation, that's not mine.
Well,
I don't think that's everybody.
Okay, well, I'm
That
sure.
location was not acceptable to most of the voters.
Right, and that's why.
Certainly price was a part of it, I agree.
Well, I thought price was the biggest thing, but if it comes up on a advisory vote, there's no reason why we shouldn't put it out there if it's a free piece of property.
Well, nothing's free, so.
Well, yes, you're right. Nothing is free. Just, you know, you're right. Nothing is free.
What's the developer get out of the deal?
He gets to build 30 more houses.
Yeah, well, there's the answer to the question, there's the free.
42.
There's the free.
Yeah. 30 more houses is not free.
Well, you have to look at it for a city our size with no real commercial property, which is where cities make their money. We are facing a time in the near future, 10 or 15 years, where we're going to be out of money because property taxes will not keep up with the cost of the city doing business and the price of paying our employees. I mean, last year it was a COLA of 8%. 40 more houses in our tax base will give us a cushion. And that is what I'm willing to do. Because it makes sense in the long run for the city to be proactive in getting tax. Anyway, yes, ma'am.
It sounds to me like it might be worth learning a little bit more where the emphasis is is it the location that the north of town was a problem, or is it the cost? It might be worth getting a little more into
Sure.
that balance.
Well, you know, we got a way to find out what people think. And we're going to do that on the next town hall, because this is just the first of it. And the voting, I thought, went really well. It didn't take long. And, you know, if that's a location that people don't want, we'll see at the advisory vote if it comes up, because it's not going to be on the advisory vote if we don't have an agreement. All right, as Jack?
There's a lot to unpack on the Highlands for sure. One thing that I'm a little confused about is that you call that developer contribution a donation. Where before, I thought we talked about
A what?
land swap. You're gonna exchange properties. And I believe your city attorney talked about the nuances of like-kind exchanges.
He was talking about the urban growth boundary. That is not a land swap. That is a piece of drawn in district. And all we're going to do is move it over here.
I understand that. The question is still remains, is there a land swap? Is it in fact a donation where we don't have to give anything back from on the city side? My impression from Paulina Cochran, when I met with her, was in fact you were gonna exchange a no-build lots out there on the dunes area. Now.
Yeah, it didn't have anything to
I'm
do
not even
with,
sure, I'm not even sure based on what Deanna Mansell has discovered, that you even have ownership to swap anything.
no, we don't own that property. It's zoning. So you'd be swapping zoning, R1 designated for a lower designated zoning. So there's no land being swapped. We're not trading anything with anybody if that was the direction that the council wanted to go. It all has to do with what that property is zoned.
I understand.
And currently, so there is
I'm just
no trade
suggesting
there.
that maybe you clarify those kinds of issues and get them off the table if you want to pursue it. And I don't.
Well, we will get it off the table, because if we do anything, all we're going to do is expand our urban growth boundary
Okay.
to bring that into our urban growth zone.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay,
I have one other thing, if you bear with me. I have listened to Councilor Devereaux talk and make statements about the idea of Gearhart being a substation of Seatrain. The implication there to me is it's a merger. What I would like to hear is from you folks, the mayor, the other councilors. What do you think of that idea? It's clear that Chad and Dana find that to be very poor alternative.
Oh, I would fight anybody who wanted to merge with Seaside. I believe Gearhart is a wonderful place. I've been here for 38 years and I will fight to keep it Gearhart all the way until I'm dead.
How about Rita and Sharon? What are you?
My thoughts are that I would like to have Gearhart remain autonomous and not merge with Seaside. We already cooperate with Seaside in every way. I think being not a substation, but our own little Gearhart fire station, I think that's best for the community as a whole.
And Councilor Sharon?
I would just have to ask. I mean, Seaside's growing, Gearhart's growing. So my question would be, do we really want to depend on Seaside when they're gonna have their hands full as it already is, and we're already giving them more aid than they're giving us?
You know that for a fact?
Yeah, we keep
Yeah,
that.
he just
That was a number that I gave you.
gave us numbers.
And every month when I give the reports, that's what those numbers are from, actual. And you can go on our website and find the 2022 end of year report,
I got
which
it.
have those. And then in a couple of months, when we have a time, if we weren't preparing for tonight, we would have been preparing for 2023 end of year.
Since you brought that up, you know, it would be interesting on your logs or calls, that if you would maybe look at the Nehalem Fire District and Cannon Beach and how they report on their calls. For instance, it's a very clear thing how much, what percentage of their calls are good neighbor calls versus fire structures.
That's also on that end of year report.
Okay.
We run historically.
It'd be nice to see it on a, as you do your monthly, if you could just make that breakout, it would help all of us come to.
So I would love to. Part of what we get into is everything takes time. And there's only so much of me I did this to go around, and even creating the reports that we have takes time.
Yeah.
And that separation, that pie chart's on the 2022 in the report. It'll be on the 2023 in the reports. We run every year I've looked at 48 to 52% medical.
I'm sorry, I missed.
48 to 52% medicals. Half of our calls are medical.
When you say medical.
Yes.
Someone had a heart attack, someone stubbed their toe, someone's not feeling good. We go into somebody's house because there's an illness.
I think it would be great that the population that isn't here tonight and those that are here tonight would understand that. Cause we do look at your call reports.
Yeah, and on there's a category that says what the call type is. So I mean, you can look at it individually if it's medical or a fire or whatever. So they are individual.
Okay.
We're lazy. We wanna just manage it.
I think that's something we definitely try. Right now, I'm trying to work on medics' timeframes and how long it's taking them to get here. So I'm gonna have to bear with us on
Well,
some of that.
I'm not even suggesting you go to that effort. I'm just saying, look.
No, it's important. It's
Well,
for
for you and for all of us and.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, on those monthly call reports, if you can break it out and make a definitive statement of what you've done as on a percentage basis, so that when you do come back and ask us for money, that we intuitively, without question, understand what's going on.
Thank you, Jack.
And then one other thing, I am sure Dana and Chad are probably factually correct on all the reasons you don't want a substation. But they are, in fact, those statements are your opinion. So my question is, has anybody on the council in support of what Preston has tried to put forward, talked about establishing some type of exploratory committee where you would formally sit down with the representatives of Seaside and hammer through all the sensitivities? If it's, you want to retain your volunteers, you can do so. I don't see a commitment from the council to even explore that alternative, to bring back facts about what Seaside would want. And for all I know, Seaside would want the moon. And you wouldn't even consider it.
Thank you, Jack.
But
That's enough, okay?
I think the taxpayers should get that kind of commitment from you folks.
Jack, I appreciate your comments, okay?
Thank you. They're very kind.
Mr. Mayor,
It- Are there any other questions?
Mr. Mayor,
I'm gonna get the gentleman in the back and then I'll get to you. Yes, sir.
My name is Russell Torres. We've had to deal with the fire call, the 27% call breakdown in 2022. How many of those were structure fires inside of the Gearhart city limits?
We would have to go in farther and break that down individually and individually count and restriction will do that.
Okay.
I think it was
Also, could you break down how many were grass fires? Because you're talking about building this expensive building, updating all this stuff, but if there hasn't been any structure fires, why would you need a big fire department?
Okay, thank you. And on screen,
Christie was hearing you. Christie, did you have something?
I was just gonna draw attention that we have a hand up online.
I
Go ahead and answer that for us.
It's Beth Cameron.
unfortunately, I can't see anything.
Here we are.
Yeah, yeah. Beth Cameron, 2906 Plain Court. I just want to tell you that I really appreciate the app that Chief Como found and being able to vote. I'm one of those part-timers, and so I can't vote in the May, well, in your general elections and stuff. It's not possible for me. And I really appreciate feeling like my voice got heard tonight. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thanks for your comment. All right. Is there anyone else online that has their hand up that I can't see?
No other hands, Mr. Mayor.
All right. And no other questions in the audience here? Thank you very much for coming out and participating. I'll let you know when the next one is in March in the evening.
For those of you that'd like to see the police and stations over the way, they'll be over there if you'd like to wander over. Otherwise, you're welcome to wander through the station.
Thank you guys for those questions. That,
Recording stopped.
that is gonna be a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Question. I didn't want to ask it.